John had been sent with a mission to proclaim an announcement that the Messiah, Jesus, was coming. It was a momentous moment in which he was awakening to the world that Christ, Messiah, was going to be there. Now, announcements in churches are frequently not that exciting, in the sense of someone bursting through and saying, Jesus is coming. One of my first parishes at Mount Etna, it was a small country church, and as I was sent there right out of seminary, I was all excited about setting this church on fire. Literally, I was going to set the world on fire being fresh from seminary. But as I was about ready to preach one Sunday morning, Red Cross, the town character, bursts into the church and says, the Boswell's barn is burning and they need everyone's help. And so before I knew it, all of the congregation, all 32 of them, had all left, and there I was standing with me and the piano player. That was it. And we looked at each other and I said, well, I guess church is over. She says, oh, I was hoping you would say that. And then she took off going out, and so as I looked and stepped out, you could see the smoke bellowing up, and you could see that there was a great need. So I decided to not go on to the next parish in Corning and get in my car and go out to Boswell's and see what I could do to help. I was there long enough to get a picture of myself kind of dragging a cow to safety from the firing barn it was the Adams County Free Press. But what it taught me was the presence of being there. The presence of being there, especially in a time of need. Because the next Sunday, the church was packed. Even Red Cross came to church. Now, Red was a character, as I said, in town. He had a country western band that he called Red Cross and the Band-Aids. He looked like Willie Nelson, sang like Willie Nelson, but he was the town character. Much like John the Baptist would be considered a character in Jesus' time. One who lived in the wilderness and dressed in such a way that he drew attention to himself and ate wild honey and locusts. I just can't imagine that kind of diet. Maybe it might help me. But we knew that he was one who came as a voice from the wilderness to announce that Christ was coming. Now, most of our announcements, if you look through our bulletin this morning, are kind of boring, but if you want to look very carefully, there are two mistakes in the bulletin. It starts out with the first hymn is the wrong number, and then poor Nicole is coming from the Trinity United Methodist Church. Well, we all know those, and we've all seen the announcements that are kind of misspelled. There's one that in particular that we're familiar with is that our chancel choir is rehearsing at 7:15 on Wednesday night. Anyone who wants to come and sing with them are invited to come and join them. Sin. They forgot to add the word sing. So I wonder, what is going on with our choir on Wednesday nights? And why do they need to practice it? That's the thing that I'm trying to figure out. But John's announcement was one to make to the world that indeed Christ was coming. He was coming. He was come to be here, to be our friend, to be the Word that has become flesh, to become Emmanuel, God with us, in the way of coming as he did from Nazareth. So John's announcement was one that was going to change the world. Now, I love this time of year. It is one of my favorite times of the year because of the music and the lighting of candles, the decorating, that all we do, the food that we eat, the opportunities. I love to always surprise Janet at Christmas time. But all of that is just fluff unless we take seriously the message that John has for us. And come and prepare a way. What he's saying is that we all need to be preparing our hearts for the coming of Jesus. To welcome him every Christmas, to welcome the child that was born in the manger in Bethlehem, once again in our hearts. What John's message is for us is that nobody just came up with that idea. Nobody thought, well, let's make up a story about a little boy, let's start a religion called Christianity. What we have is a revelation from God in the giving of his Son to our world as the greatest and ultimate gift of all. That it wasn't just somebody's brainstorm. What it was is truly a revelation of God. For in Jesus, we see and learn and discover who God really is. I don't know about you, but as we think about Pearl Harbor Day, there are many of us who have seen the email or the iTunes, what is it, YouTube things. The story of a 6-year-old little boy who was celebrating his 6th birthday. He comes into the party room and he sees the cake and he seems to be just infatuated with the cake. He's wanting his mom to light the candles and hurry up because he wants to blow them out and make his wish. And or one of his little bratty friends says, look over there, look over there. And they look over there and there is this giant, this huge gift over in the corner. It's about the size, it looks like to me, it reminds me of a refrigerator box. You know, the size of something that a refrigerator comes in, wrapped up just like a beautiful birthday gift. When the boy saw that, he couldn't wait. He didn't even ask for his mom's permission to unwrap it. He just started tearing into that, thinking, what is in that? Maybe a bicycle. Maybe what could be so big that when he finally opened it up, his father popped out. His dad had been in Iraq for a year and finally got home. And it just coincided with his son's birthday. His dad was home in flesh and blood. That is what Christmas is about and celebrating. That it was the ultimate gift for this 6-year-old boy to receive his father home alive. As we celebrate the ultimate gift that God has given to us in his Son, who came and was born in a manger. There's a second part of John the Baptist's message, and that is, I come to baptize with water, but he will come and baptize with the Holy Spirit. And I bring this up because we sometimes don't take seriously our baptism as something that has been very important, one of those most important moments in our lives, whether we were infants or children or adults in receiving that baptism. Sometimes we think of it as just a cute thing that we do when babies are just a certain age. But we forget how important that is to our faith. See, the baptism is a way, it's not a symbol or a sign, but what it is a reminder that we are marked as the children of God. God marks us in a special way of baptism to remind us that we are his children and that we are all part of his family. So when I share in a baptism, I'd like to take the child or the children out into the congregation as a way of reminding that we are part of this. We are part of this child's family. That we make an investment in them as we make the promise that we will help to raise this child and care for this child and love this child as they then are able to finally make that commitment for themselves to allow Christ to be in their lives. But what this is that it begins that child's life of faith as the Holy Spirit comes in. This last week we are making our preparations to go south to Houston to spend part of Christmas with my sister Susie. And Susie's husband Larry just passed away over the summer. And so we're wanting to spend some time. And while we were gathered around our Thanksgiving table, she was just hurriedly trying to pack her house, everything up because she had to be out by November 30th and to begin her new life in a smaller house that is cheaper without Larry. And so as we were looking at that, we were thinking about all the years. For 25 years, we have shared, our kids are all about the same age, and we spent Christmas together. We always went to church that Sunday after Christmas. Not just because Pastor, her brother Steve, the pastor, is there, but that's what their family did. Part of the reason Larry and his funeral was packed was that my sister and Larry have taught the 2 and 3-year-old class for 20 years in that church where they attend. And many of those who attended were the parents and some of those children that they had and began planting the seeds of Jesus. For several years, as we made our way in the car full of kids and adults to church, Larry would put in the soundtrack to "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" And in that is this wonderful little song, I'm going to go down to the river to pray. And it's a beautiful song, and it's kind of a way of setting the stage. But Natalie, his daughter, said, Dad always puts this in when we go to church to kind of set that up. Well, if you remember the movie, "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" You'll remember that in that movie there's 3 convicts that have escaped, and they're trying to find their way. They're trying to get their way where along the way they run into a group of people that are all dressed in white. They're making their way through the woods, and where they're going is to a river where there is a baptism being held as people are lined up waiting to be baptized. As they follow these people and they're singing this song, one of the convicts couldn't wait. He had to go right to the head of the line where he was wanting to be immersed by this pastor. And he comes out and he's just full of joy. He says, the pastor says, my sins are washed away. That pig that I stole, that they put me in prison for, it is washed away. And his friend says, well, I thought you told us that you didn't do that. And he said, I lied, but it's still washed away. He was so excited. He was so excited. His life had been changed in that moment. And it had. And you have to watch the movie very closely because shortly after that, they're sneaking by a house. And on the house was a sill with a beautiful apple pie just being out of the oven and just being cooled off. It looks like it's getting ready for dinner. When the 2 other convicts steal the pie. But later, in just a moment, you see the convict that now is a child of God by baptism goes over and puts some money up on the sill because his conscience was bothering him. Our lives are changed. And the baptism marks us as ones who have been touched by God and that we are a family. One of my favorite stories, and it probably is my favorite, is Charles Dickens' Christmas story, or Christmas Carol. At the closing of that carol, or that story, the Cratchits had just received a prize turkey. And a big surprise for that family. They couldn't understand who on earth would send a prize turkey to their home. Who of their friends could afford to give such a gift? And as they were saying, where did this come from? Tiny Tim was the only one that really knew where that came from. He said, Scrooge. Mr. Scrooge. And Mother Cratchit said, what could happen to Scrooge that he would do a thing like this? This is not anything that Scrooge would do. What would make him do something like this? She couldn't believe it would be Scrooge. And Tiny Tim had the answer. Christmas. Christmas. It was Christmas that changed Scrooge's heart and his life. It is Christmas that changed our world. It is Christmas that we now have a God who has come to us to be with us, to go where we go. Because He's God with us, who loves us, and has promised to be with us wherever we go. Let us pray. Gracious God, out of the mouths of babes, we are ever mindful, Lord, of the need of a friend, someone who will be with us. And yet you sent us a Savior, who's our friend, our shepherd, our mighty one, our Prince of Peace. Lord, in this Christmas season, may we once again welcome him into our hearts, and may we allow him to be in our hearts always. Amen.